My name is Emma Carter, and I never imagined that the woman who raised me would one day try to take away the home I spent years building. But she did. And she did it in front of my entire family. It was my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. The backyard was decorated with white lights, flowers, and long tables filled with food. Everyone was laughing, taking pictures, and celebrating. At least, that's how the night started. Then my mother stood up, raised her glass, and looked directly at me. "Emma," she said, "there's something we need to discuss." I smiled. "Sure, Mom. What is it?" She pointed toward my brother Daniel. "Your brother has a family now. He needs a proper home." I looked at Daniel. He suddenly became very interested in his plate. Then my mother said the words that made the entire table go silent. "I think you should give your house to Daniel." I actually thought I had heard her wrong. "Excuse me?" My mother sighed. "You live alone. Daniel has 2 children. It only makes sense." My heart started pounding. That house wasn't some family property. I had bought it myself. 7 years earlier, I worked 2 jobs, saved almost every dollar, and finally bought that 3-bedroom house. I remembered standing inside it on the first night, surrounded by empty boxes, crying because I had finally achieved something nobody could take away from me. Or so I thought. Daniel suddenly spoke. "Emma, Mom's right. You don't really need such a big house." I stared at him. "You knew about this?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. My mother pushed a brown folder across the table. "Everything is already prepared. You just need to sign." I looked at the papers. Then I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That hurt more than my mother's demand. Because suddenly I remembered all the times I had helped Daniel. When his business failed, I gave him $20,000. When he couldn't pay his rent, I covered it. When his wife needed a new car, I helped again. I never asked for anything back. Not once. Yet now they wanted the one thing I had worked hardest for. My mother tapped the folder. "Emma, family helps family." I took a slow breath. Then I smiled. My mother thought I was finally going to surrender. Daniel thought the house was already his. They were both wrong. I reached into my handbag and pulled out another folder. Daniel's face immediately changed. "Emma." I placed it on the table. My mother frowned. "What is that?" I looked around at everyone. Then I said quietly, "Since we're talking about family tonight, I think everyone should know where the $20,000 I gave Daniel actually went." Daniel suddenly stood up. And for the first time that night, he looked scared. Daniel stood so quickly that his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Emma, sit down," he said. His voice wasn't angry anymore. It was nervous. I looked at him and slowly opened the folder. "Why?" I asked. "Are you worried about what's inside?" My mother reached for the papers. "Emma, this isn't the time for family drama." I pulled the folder away. "No, Mom. You made it the time when you asked me to give Daniel my house. Everyone at the table was watching us now." I took out the first document. "This is the bank transfer from 2 years ago." I placed it in front of my father. $20,000. I gave it to Daniel when his business was struggling. My mother nodded. "We know you helped him." "No," I said. "You don't know everything." I pulled out another page. "This is where the money went." Daniel's wife suddenly looked at him. "What does she mean?" Daniel shook his head. "She's twisting everything." I looked at him. "Then explain it." I turned the document around so everyone could see. The money I had given Daniel wasn't used to save his business. It wasn't used to pay his debts. It wasn't used for his children. A large part of it had been transferred into another account. And 3 weeks later, Daniel bought a brand new luxury SUV. My aunt gasped. Daniel, is that true? He didn't answer. His wife stared at him. You told me you financed that car yourself. Daniel rubbed his forehead. I was going to pay Emma back. I couldn't help but laugh. You were going to pay me back? I looked directly into his eyes. When? He said nothing. My mother suddenly became defensive. Emma, even if Daniel made a mistake, that doesn't mean you should embarrass him in front of everyone. I stared at her. Embarrass him? My voice became quiet. I gave him $20,000 because I trusted him. Then I pointed toward the house documents. And tonight, you asked me to give him a house worth hundreds of thousands. Nobody spoke. I could see the questions spreading across everyone's faces. Why did my mother suddenly want Daniel to have my house? Why had the paperwork already been prepared? And most importantly, how long had they been planning this? I pulled another document from the folder. This isn't the only thing I found. My mother's face changed. She whispered. Emma, where did you get that? I looked at her. From the lawyer I hired last month. Daniel suddenly stepped toward me. You hired a lawyer? Yes. Why? I smiled. Because something about those house papers didn't feel right. I placed the final document on the table. It was a copy of a property transfer agreement. My name was on it. So was Daniel's. But there was one problem. I had never signed it. My father finally looked up. His face had gone pale. And when I saw his reaction, I realized something terrifying. He already knew about the document. I looked at him. Dad. He slowly lowered his eyes. Tell me the truth. The entire table became silent. Then my father whispered 6 words that changed everything. Your mother wanted you to sign it. I stared at him. But there was something he still wasn't telling me. And I was about to find out why. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. My father had just admitted that my mother wanted me to sign away my house. But something about the way he said it told me there was more. I looked at him. Dad, how long have you known? He stared at the table. Emma, please don't make this worse. I felt my heart sink. Worse? I pointed at the documents. You were going to let me sign away my home without telling me? My father remained silent. My mother suddenly stood up. That isn't what happened. I turned toward her. Then tell me what happened. She couldn't. Not immediately. And that silence was louder than any confession. Daniel suddenly interrupted. Emma, you're making a huge mistake. I looked at him. No. My mistake was trusting you. His face hardened. You think you're better than everyone because you bought a house? I shook my head. No. I think I deserve to keep what I worked for. Then I pulled another document from my folder. This is a copy of the emails between Mom and the lawyer. My mother's face went completely white. I had found the emails 3 weeks earlier. At first, I hadn't wanted to believe them. My mother had written that Daniel needed the house because he was the responsible child with a family. She had written that I was too independent to understand. But the worst sentence was the last one. Emma will eventually agree if we put enough pressure on her. I read that sentence aloud. Nobody moved. Daniel's wife slowly turned toward my mother. You planned this? My mother started crying. We were trying to help Daniel. I stared at her. What about me? She looked at me. You have a good life. I almost couldn't believe it. So because I worked hard, I deserve less? No. Because I don't have children, my home belongs to someone else? She had no answer. Then Daniel suddenly said something that shocked everyone. She was going to give it to me anyway. I looked at him. What? He swallowed. Mom told me you would eventually agree. My entire body went cold. You knew? Daniel looked away. How long? He didn't answer. I stepped closer. How long have you known? Finally, he whispered. 6 months. 6 months. For 6 months, my brother had known that our mother was planning to take my house. For 6 months, he had watched me smile at family dinners. For 6 months, he had accepted my help while secretly waiting for me to surrender my home. I felt tears forming in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Then I remembered something. I reached into my handbag one final time. I have one more document. Daniel looked at me. What? I placed it on the table. It was the updated legal deed to my house. My mother stared at it. I smiled. I didn't sign your papers. I tapped the document. I changed the ownership protection instead. Daniel's face froze. My mother whispered. What did you do? I looked around the table. I made sure nobody can force me to give away my house. Then I looked directly at Daniel. And there's one more thing you don't know. He frowned. I leaned closer. Your $20,000 debt isn't the only money I'm asking you to return. Daniel's expression changed. Because he suddenly realized. I had discovered everything. Daniel stared at me. What do you mean, everything? I took a slow breath. For years, I had protected my family. I had hidden their mistakes. I had helped them financially. I had defended them when other relatives questioned their choices. But that night, I finally understood something. Keeping their secrets had only taught them that they could keep hurting me. I opened the final folder. This is every payment I made for you over the last 5 years. Daniel's face changed. I had documented everything. Rent. Bills. Business expenses. The $20,000 he claimed he would repay. The money I had given his wife. Even several payments my mother had asked me to make secretly. The total was much higher than anyone expected. My aunt leaned forward. How much? I looked at Daniel. $47,600. The table went completely silent. Daniel shook his head. You can't be serious. I am. My mother started crying. Emma, please. We're family. I looked at her. That word doesn't mean what you think it means. She wiped her tears. You're really going to do this to your own brother? I shook my head. No, Mom. Daniel did this to himself. Then I placed one final document on the table. This is the repayment agreement my lawyer prepared. Daniel stared at it. You're taking me to court? No. I smiled. I don't need to. The agreement gave him a reasonable payment plan. No threats. No humiliation. Just accountability. And there was something else. I had already moved my house into a protected legal trust. Nobody could pressure me into signing it away. My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes. I thought you would always help us. I nodded. I thought so too. Then I stood up. But helping someone and allowing them to use you are two different things. Daniel's wife stood beside him. You lied to me, she whispered. Daniel looked down. Their marriage suddenly had problems of its own. My father remained seated. He looked broken. Finally, he stood and walked toward me. Emma. I'm sorry. I looked at him. I know. And your mother. He stopped. I shook my head. Dad, I don't need excuses anymore. I picked up my bag. Then I looked around the table one last time. This house isn't going anywhere. My mother whispered. Are you leaving us? I paused. I'm leaving the version of this family where my kindness is treated like a debt. Then I walked away. That night, I drove home alone. When I opened my front door, I stood quietly in the living room. The same house they had tried to take from me. For the first time, it didn't feel like a house. It felt like freedom. Months later, Daniel began repaying the money. Slowly, but he did. My relationship with my parents changed too. It wasn't perfect. Maybe it never would be. But eventually, my mother admitted something that I had needed to hear for years. We confused your kindness with weakness. I smiled sadly. That was your mistake. I forgave her. But I never forgot what happened. Because forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone permission to hurt you again. That anniversary party taught me the most important lesson of my life. You can love your family without sacrificing yourself for them. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destroying the people who betrayed you. It's standing up, protecting what you built, and walking away with your dignity intact. My family thought they were taking my house that night. Instead, they lost the daughter who would always say yes.